If you're a product manager, engineer, designer, or a founder working on a product, here's what you need to know about where things are going in the future with AI and automation and the skills that you need to stay relevant and competitive. So, my name is Zan. I'm a product leader. I now run my own company. We've been doing a whole bunch of research, about 80 plus hours of research so far on where all of these trends around AI and automation are going and what it means for the future of product development. So in this video, I'm not going to cover all of that research in detail. There's a lot there, but I'll touch on some of the high level takeaways and what it means for you. So first, let me just start with a little bit of the research and how we went about what we've looked at. And then secondly, I'll talk about what are some of the skills that we think will be most important. So if we look at the research, we focused on what I think are the key fundamental areas of product development. So one is product discovery. So this is at a high level, what's the right thing to build, right? How do you know you're building the right thing and what is the right thing to build? The second is the build process. So building it, shipping it, getting to from zero to live software. And then the third thing is distribution. So how do you get and retain customers? So what we did is we went pretty in depth to map out the current state process in each of these areas, from discovery to design to development. We didn't go as deeply into distribution yet, but it's an area we may look at in the future. Anyways, we looked at the key steps in the process today, and I know every team has their own process. Every team does things their own way, so it's hard to come up with one universal process for everyone. But at a high level, what are the key steps that product teams follow today in these processes? We mapped out how long they typically take today, and then we looked at in the future, as more and more work is automated, which areas are most likely to be automated in the future. And here's what we found based on some of that research. So if we look across these three areas, discovery, so the first thing is the build piece. So building it, shipping it, where I'd say the most of the focus of product teams goes to this area today. This piece is the first that I see getting automated and potentially the area that's going to get automated the most in the future. So I think we're headed towards a future where anybody will be able to build anything, or at least anything that's maybe low to medium level complexity, which is a lot of software products today. So if you think about it, in that future world where anyone can build anything, even if you're not a technical person, what becomes important, right? Because if anyone can build anything, the market is going to be flooded with products. So what becomes important in that world is, one, are you building the right thing? And the second thing is, how do you get attention? How do you get and retain customers in this market? So let me go into a little bit more detail. But what that means for you is if you're a PM or a person who's only focused on the execution side today, and I see this a lot with early career PMs and early career engineers, if you're solely focused on the execution side, your work is going to become much more automated. That doesn't mean the job is going to go away necessarily, but the skills that you'll need are going to be a bit different. And so I'll touch on what I would do if I were an early career, especially product person today. But let me go into detail about why we feel that way. So if you look at underneath discovery and underneath each of these buckets, underneath discovery, some of the key activities we have right now are understanding the customer, understanding the market, creating a vision and a strategy, and defining the overall direction, whether that be the design direction, the technical direction. Of course, there's lots more activities underneath each of these. But when it comes to strategy and research, while we believe that pieces of this will get automated for at least some period of time over the next few years, it's still going to be up to you to decide what do I want to build? Even if AI is doing the legwork, you're still deciding, hey, which market do I want to focus on? Which customer do I want to go after? What types of research do I want to do? What is the overall design aesthetic that I want that's different than what's already out there? Those things will still require, for the near term at least, human judgment, critical thinking, figuring out where what the North Star is. That requires a person for the time being, at least. Especially if you're an early career PM, get to know these skill areas. Now, if you look at what fits in this execution bucket, the build bucket, number two, today a lot of software teams are still doing things like an entry level PM, maybe doing writing user stories and requirements. That's going to get nearly 100% automated, I would say. Creating designs. Now, again, the higher level thinking about what is the overall design direction, what kind of design is best for this experience, that part may still require human judgment. But once it's clear, the actual process of production, that part is going to get much more automated. Then we're already seeing a lot of automation around generating code. So if you're a software developer, if you're an engineer, taking that design, turning it into code, especially if you're a front end developer. Of course, there's already plugins today that will take Figma code, turn it into React code, turn it into different kinds of code. That's only going to get more and more sophisticated. So if you're a front end developer, especially, your work is about to become much more automated. If you're a back end developer, it may take a bit longer. But still, going from design to generating code is becoming much more automated as well. And the deployment process. And lastly, all the PM often is the person who's coordinating all of this, running project management, running the agile process. I do feel a lot of that will get automated moving ahead. So if you're somebody who's working in any of these functions and you're purely on the execution side, from a functional perspective, I would start to understand and get to know and figure out how do PM build your product skills. If you're an engineer, build your product skills, figure out what is the right thing to build, and then focus on the bottom of this stack here, which we haven't talked about much yet, but what I think will become especially critical, really critical, is understanding how to distribute what you build and get an audience and build traction around what you're building. So we're already seeing this, but growth roles, the number one role today that's high in demand for product people is growth. So we're already seeing some of this happening today, but growth in marketing, content creation, sales, how do you actually get customers? Understanding this will be very important. So this is what I think will lead to more and more people being what I consider full stack product builders, right? So essentially, you can build from top, you can run a product development process from top to bottom. So we'll see more solo founders, we'll see designers who can actually build their own software and distribute it. We'll see engineers who already do that today, building more of the skills to learn what is the right thing to build, how do you get customers. So I would focus on becoming more versatile and becoming a full stack product builder. That's the first, I'd say the other thing to call out here is, because I know there's a lot here. So this is like the order of operations that I would do it in. If you're somebody who's in a purely execution role today, the first thing I would do is, because most people have still not taken the time to do this, figure out how you can automate 70 to 80%, if not more, of this process. And again, it depends. If you're dealing with super complex applications, you're in a production grade, highly sensitive environment where you don't have full control over the product development process. I understand that may not happen overnight and you may not have full control of that. But for anything that you're responsible for, see how much of it you can automate as much as possible. And it doesn't just mean prompting ChatGPT. It means automating the end-to-end workflow, right? It's not just like asking ChatGPT a prompt. It's, can you take an idea, turn it into using AI, whether ChatGPT or something else, to write the requirements, turn that into your ticket in your ticket management software, which then turns into you automatically maybe QAing it, all of that stuff, end to end. How much of it can you automate? Then I would take the time savings that you're getting from that automation and reinvest that time into these other areas. And maybe if you're not a marketing person or a salesperson, maybe you don't start there at first. Just start with the top piece first. Understanding the market. Hey, why did we build that thing? What was the reason we chose this option over that option? How do we prioritize? Start to build the skills at the top of the product stack. And if you're so inclined, if you're really interested in growth and marketing, then start to reinvest time in there. So if you do just those things, automate as much as possible here, I think you'll be, from based on my conversations today, you will be ahead of, and maybe even 2 to 10 times faster than existing PMs, because everyone is experimenting with automation, but they're doing it at a very basic level. So if you invest the time and do it at a much more sophisticated level where you can do entire workflows in an automated way, you'll be ahead of the game, at least for the next 6 to 12 months. Now, the last thing I'll mention here is, okay, so key takeaway in terms of functional activities is automate the build part, focus more on what's the right thing to build, learn the frameworks for that if you don't know them already. And if you can, I would start to get much smarter about distribution and content. And I may talk about that in a separate video as well. There's one other piece that we need to cover that we haven't covered yet. When we did this research, and as we've looked at where the world is heading, of course, these functional activities are still going to be relevant for the foreseeable future or the near future. But there's a world in which even some of the stuff that's in green may get more and more automated. So the second thing you need to focus on, in addition to the functional skills, is what I would call the human skills. Yes, as a PM, you need to build stuff, you need to figure out the right thing to build, you need to build it, you need to market it. But what is really critical, even today and in the future, what people miss is the core part of the job isn't just doing that stuff. It is convincing everyone else that what you're doing is the right thing. So all of the soft skills, the human skills, communication, storytelling, teamwork, empathy, decision making, negotiation, problem solving, stakeholder management. If you can build those skills, that's what gets people promoted, or that's what gets people to move up, and that's what makes for successful founders too. So really work on those soft skills, especially if you're a technical person, especially if you're a designer, especially if you're used to working by yourself. Start to figure out how to work in teams, because it will take time, and maybe over time AI can do some of this too, but it will take longer for AI to take over these soft human skills than it will the other stuff. To sum up, at a high level, if I were you as a PM or a product builder today, I for the functional areas, I would focus on automating as much as possible my build and execution process and reinvest that time into understanding really how do you figure out the right thing to build. And secondly, how do you get an audience or a customer base for what you're doing? And then on top of it, you need to work on your human skills. So I know that's going to be a lot to cover in one session. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but you need to start to invest your time strategically and think about where's the right place to go. The last thing I'll say on this is, if you look at most courses today, and the reason why I'm emphasizing this more, especially for early career people, most of the courses today largely focus on this middle section. And most of the time when I get questions from junior PMs and early career PMs, they're very fixated on very tactical stuff, agile process, sprint ceremonies. And I'm not saying you don't need those things. That is still a foundation, just basic, but that is something you can learn in a few days or even a week. This stuff is going to require much more investment in time. So learn the basics of the middle, but really focus on the higher level. What's the right thing to build, and what are the human skills? Okay, that's what I wanted to share today. There's lots more research to unpack underneath this. I'll try to share more as we continue to do the work and learnings. And maybe if you want me to go deeper on any of the topics that we covered today, happy to do that. Let me know in the comments or send me a message, and happy to share more. But I hope that helps you give a sense of where things are going, and look forward to your thoughts.